Hi, John Carosella here again, sharing a little bit of beauty at the beach. And I'd like to share with you part 2 of my exploration of judgment as original sin. So when we left off in our story, Adam and Eve were in the garden, and with God and with Lucifer. And Eve had just taken a bite of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Knowledge of good and evil. And I claim that that's judgment. That what emerged in her in that moment, and subsequently in Adam, was judgment. And the ability to abstract from and separate from our sensate experience that which is comforting, that which is not comfortable, that which feels good, that which feels bad, into a model, a moral system or a value system that is not tied, not necessarily tied, and in many cases is diametrically opposed to what feels good or what feels bad. This is how we can get the mortification of the flesh, for example. We can say that pleasure is bad. There's a whole bunch of things that happen when we leave our sensate experience, go into our model, our cognitive model, and create projections about what's good and what's not good, and imbue those concepts with the labels good or evil. And that's really a process of judging. And I think it's important to ask, why is judgment bad? And what was God trying to do when he told Eve not to take a bite of the fruit? One could impugn God with the idea that he just didn't want us to have the kind of power that he had. Which is kind of what Lucifer says to Eve. Is he's like, oh, he just doesn't want you to be like him. As if God were holding out on us or something. But I don't think that was the deal. I think God didn't want us to take a bite of that fruit. Because when we have this modeling capacity, first of all, we separate ourselves from the creation, from the beauty of the creation, from the garden. Which is a tragedy. And secondly, we can't help ourselves from doing it because it's part of it. It's like an emergent property of sentience. But we never have enough data to do it right. And the idea of us knowing that something is good or evil, that at any given moment there's a way for us to know with certainty that an action is favorable or not favorable. It's all context dependent. It's all dependent on how big a vision, how big a view you have of what you're trying to optimize around, right? Which is another way of saying, if you look at the human condition, you're going to have different value judgments about what's good or bad, what's right or wrong, than if you look at an individual or at a family or at a community or at a culture. And so we by virtue of our sentience, are compelled to judge. And yet, it's not very satisfying because we're always missing data. We're always missing information. We don't have the long view. We don't have all the facts, whatever it is. And I think what Lucifer meant when he said, we'll make you like God, was not exactly the whole truth. I think what he said was, it'll make you think like you're God. But really, God's the only one that has all the data. So God's the only one that can judge without inflicting pain and without creating separation. And so I think original sin is an emergent property of human consciousness, of human sentience. Nobody gets away without it. And, so the question is, what do we do about it? And more on that later. Thanks for joining me.